Hi everyone, it's Aaron from Push Square, and if you like kick flipping your way through video games, then do we have a treat for you today? Because if you can't already see, yes, we're going to be talking about OlliOlli World, which is the new, obviously, skateboarding game from the folks over at Roll7. But even more special is the gentleman who's here to discuss it with me today. It is none other than Push Square's very own associate editor. It's the lovely Stephen Telby. How are you, Stephen?
I'm good, Aaron. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. We were just discussing, obviously, before recording, it's quite a greyish day outside, but who cares what colour it is outside when you've got the attractive sights available to roll through in OlliOlli World, which you've been playing, and oh my god, I'm so jealous.
Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful, really. I'm just gonna dive straight into it because I'm pretty excited about this game.
Yeah, hit me with it. There's so much I want to know because it's been so long, obviously, since the last OlliOlli game.
Yeah, it has been a hot minute, as they say. I don't know who says that. Doesn't matter.
Somebody out there does.
Yeah, someone has said it before, maybe. Anyway, so yeah, it has been a while since the last OlliOlli. I think it was like 2014 or 15 or something, I want to say.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, I actually played a little bit of OlliOlli 2 just before getting stuck into OlliOlli World, because I wanted to get a little bit of a refresher on the basics, because I knew that the controls, they're kind of fiddly, not something that you kind of are immediately used to if you've been away from it for a while. So I was like, well, I'll dive into the last one, get a feel for it again, so that I'm kind of ready for the new one. And then I played the new one. I played OlliOlli World. And while the kind of fundamentals are the same, I think that it's a humongous step up in many ways from the previous one.
Yeah, and you kind of get that impression just from the title alone, right? OlliOlli World, because, we've had other franchises like Monster Hunter, and it seems like whenever that subtitle gets thrown around, the developer is trying to make a statement. And I too have also been dipping into OlliOlli 2. Welcome to Ollywood, I believe it's called.
Yes.
Because I wanted to get a feel. It's been so long. And yeah, it was surprising just how addictively Moorish the game still is, like so many years on. That instant, replay, you crash down, or you're trying to go for a perfect run and you end up landing sloppily, as the game is prone to keep telling you over and over again.
Yeah.
It's just literally, I think it's like 2 button taps and then you're back in at the start of that course. So my first question to you, Stephen, obviously you've been previewing OlliOlli World. Does it still maintain that kind of core Moorishness? Are you going to, be instantly back into the action should you fail?
Yeah. So again, it's got the same kind of instant replay snappiness to it. So if you do kind of if you fail, if you fall down or smash into something, you which is probably quite common, you can again, I think it's you hit triangle and it resets you back to actually it resets you back to either the beginning or a checkpoint, because one point of difference in OlliOlli World from the previous 2 games is it has mid-level checkpoints throughout a stage, so you don't need to necessarily worry about that perfect run anymore, unless you want to, obviously.
I see.
So you can reset from the very start if you like. I think you hold the button instead of press it, but whatever. Basically, you pass a checkpoint, and then once you're past that checkpoint, if you restart, then you'll restart from that point. So you don't need to necessarily go from the start to the finish in one perfect sequence anymore.
Okay, that's quite a change, isn't it? So it seems like they've tried to make it a little less hardcore for everybody, but while still keeping it sort of challenging for the people that crave it. I kind of like the way they're kind of tailoring it to however you want to play, because I'm not quite sure. Obviously, each stage in the first 2 OlliOlli games were quite brief. I'd say these maybe like a minute max, at least towards the beginning. Is that the same for OlliOlli World? Is it kind of snappy in that way? Has it got some good pace to it?
Yeah, more or less the same. I would say that the stages are a little bit bigger, but they do kind of run maybe like a minute, 2 minutes, but they're expanded in different ways, so it's got more depth to it. So obviously you're looking at OlliOlli World footage at the moment, and you're seeing that the stages are in sort of like a 2.5D mode, right? Instead of the super flat 2D presentation from the other 2 games. What that allows is there's more routes that you can take that kind of take you like into the screen or like, more towards the screen. And those alternate routes might be more difficult, or they might lead you to like optional objectives that are in the level. So I don't know if you remember, but from the previous 2 games, there were like optional like missions that you could take on, like hit this score or pull this trick.
Perform these tricks.
Yes, yeah. So that kind of stuff is in OlliOlli World as well, but they are kind of more imaginative this time. So it might be like there are certain obstacles that you need to hit or not, but you might have to go looking for those obstacles because there are these multiple routes. So you might only find them on like route A, and if you're used to going on route B all the time, then you need to kind of you'll be playing these levels like over and over again to hit these multiple objectives, because it kind of, that's the way it's designed, is that it encourages you to explore all of those different paths.
Yeah, so it seems like there's even more replay value than what was even in the first 2 games. But you mentioned multiple routes, you mentioned the new, obviously, art style. Great sense of depth there, which I think was needed when you had the world moniker. But in terms of the practicality of choosing which route to go down, like when you're in the middle of a stage, is it a simple case of like the action will pause and then you have to select a specific button, or is there like a way where you can kind of guide the skater naturally to your desired route?
So the way that works is there are markers sometimes on the floor of a stage, and you'll see them, they're just sort of like white arrows, and when you're passing over that kind of zone, you can press square and you will just divert to that route, and you can do that kind of like while you're holding a manual or something, so you can keep a combo going still, and that will put you on that alternate route. Or sometimes you can go on an alternate route just by kind of like making a jump at the right time and hitting a rail that's like higher or something, just as an example. So like that might take you on a different path than a lower rail that you've not jumped to, if you know what I'm saying. So it can be quite organic in the way that you explore the levels, so you can be like, oh, there's a rail that I've noticed that I haven't used, maybe next time I run through this level, I'll remember that and I'll jump to that lower one and see what that has in store,
Yeah, because replaying OlliOlli World 2 now, there is a lot of that already, and I think the challenges are a great, as you've already hinted towards, are a great way to get you to seek out those like hidden rails, or the more challenging jumps that you otherwise would have missed otherwise.
Yeah.
Like a good example is like there were these like, I don't know, like boost platforms that you'd have to hit a trick off in order to gain enough height. But it sounds like OlliOlli World's just going to have that in spades. Obviously, on the website right now, you've already written an in-depth preview for us, or a written version, and one of the things that intrigued me most, first of all, I would encourage everybody to go over to the Push Square website and read that immediately after watching this video. But one of the things I kind of picked out of your preview was that, is this correct? Is this true? You don't have to push X anymore on a landing to nail kind of like a successful land? And like that seems like a massive change for the series, and I was kind of wondering how that affected the challenge overall.
Yeah, so that is true. You don't actually have to push X on a landing anymore, although I would say that while that does make the game kind of easier for newcomers to get used to the way that the game works, you are still rewarded for getting that timing right. So it is still in the game, you can still press X on a landing and get a perfect or a good landing, and that does affect your score. So you will get more points for a perfect landing or hitting a grind rail like perfectly, or what have you. It's just less aggressive in punishing you for failing that.
Does it break your combo if you don't press like X upon landing? Like, you build up like multiplier, I beg your pardon, like in the original games.
Yeah, so if you land and you don't pull a manual, then that sort of will end your combo. And again, you get more points for like a perfect or a good landing than if you don't press X at all. But you won't like just bail, or you won't get a sloppy landing. It will just land sort of like fairly nicely, and you're not there's not that moment where you're locked into that sloppy animation, if you know what I mean. So it's kinder, I would say. It's a softer like challenge, even though the kind of the need to hit that timing isn't there necessarily. This is still a very challenging game. Like the level of challenge that you are used to if you've played the previous 2 is there, and actually I would say that they've in some ways amped that up. I just think that what they've done is they've walked that tightrope really nicely of opening up the game to more people, making it more accessible, but also keeping the level of difficulty that people want, like fans would want, because the perfect landings are still in. It's just not as necessary anymore.
Yeah, it's like what we were saying earlier. Like rather than kind of play it awkwardly in terms of giving players a choice of difficulty, it's kind of whatever you want to make of it. And I'm the sort of person, I'm not sure about yourself, Stephen, where every time I'm beating those stages, if I get 4 stars and I know that there's a particular challenge that I need to get to, get that 5th star, then I'm going to dive back in and grab it. Even if it means diving into the Trictionary to find out the specific angle that I need to like flick my left analog stick in order to achieve it. And I could be there for like, up to 10 times sometimes. So you mentioned that you wanted to say more about the level of challenge. I don't know, because I know there's wall riding in this game now, which is a new element for OlliOlli World. Does that somehow play into it, or is that kind of quite easy to pull off?
Well, again, it's like everything in the game. Like, everything in the game is kind of easy to pull off, right? But it's chaining everything together and chasing that high score, which is where the challenge kind of really comes alive, I suppose. And yes, so while they've kind of like maybe like rounded off the sharp edges of that, getting that timing right on the landing, what they've added is, like you said, they've added wall rides, which is just like, hold the left stick down while you're over that wall, and you'll just do a nice kind of like wall ride across it. They've also added grab tricks, which is, I believe that's new to the franchise, and they're pulled off with the right stick. So while you're in midair, you can pull the right stick in, up, down, left or right, and you'll pull like one of 4 grab tricks. And then you can obviously like spin that, and you can tweak the grab if you hold it down for long enough. Those are really good for if you've got like a huge jump that you've gone across. It's a good way to rack up a load of points instead of doing just like one flip trick and then just like hanging in the air for like 2 seconds.
Yeah. Sounds like a better use of your time.
Like,
to build up combos.
Yeah, it's like a more efficient way of earning points, right? And they also have these like quarter pipe kind of like vert ramps intermittently throughout some of the stages, and they kind of will like change your direction. So if you're heading from left to right, then you'll hit one of these quarter pipes, and then go back, to the left, say, and that kind of lets the levels kind of like breathe a little bit, because they're sending you back. So the levels are a little bit longer. There's more depth to them, and those like vert ramps are also really good for pulling off the grabs. When I say that those elements are adding more of a challenge, I think it's what I'm really saying is for the people that really want to get into the nitty-gritty of, chasing those high scores and like, climbing the leaderboards, which is kind of, for me, like what the kind of addictive nature of OlliOlli is, right? Is beating your friends and climbing the leaderboards. Those new elements are going to be kind of like fun new toys for people who are used to the game to kind of get used to and master in combination with the previous like knowledge, right?
Yeah, and it is one thing like 5-starring each stage, like you say, but I think it's really important for a game like this to have the leaderboards there, and the developer Roll7 know that, and it's going to be fun trying and best all of our push square cohorts, I think, to see who's the best OlliOlli World skater.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if I'm just speaking for myself here, I wouldn't know what to do with a skateboard in real life if I tried.
Oh yeah, same.
So the kind of rounding off this conversation a little bit, obviously with the first 2 OlliOlli games, the kind of whole point was to get you in there quickly, in and out of stages. But with OlliOlli World, there's like characters and a story. At least from what I can make out from the trailers, I believe it's set in somewhere called Radlandia.
Hey, that's right.
Yeah. So, how is Radlandia as a place to sort of be in and skate through?
Well, I mean, you're looking at it now in the B-roll, but it's very colourful, very. I guess there's an obvious comparison, but Adventure Time springs to mind, right? That kind of, or like Adult Swim kind of era of cartoons, where any sort of like everyday object is a character if you just put arms and legs and a face on it. So like there's ice cream cones walking around and like that kind of stuff. and it's just like a really fun vibe, I would say.
And are you exploring? Can you explore it on like foot and go up to these characters, or is it purely a bit more pared back?
No, so it's the way the game is presented is there's this overworld map, and it's kind of like split off into, I think it's 4 or 5 districts, and each of them is like, a theme. So the first one is like, like a beach resort kind of theme, and then you move into like a woodlands kind of like forest zone. With like big walking, talking trees and stuff. And then the third one you go to is, I think it's called Burnt Rock, and it's like a desert kind of area with like Area 51 style, like aliens and like cactus people and stuff.
Yeah, because it's such a big change of tone, isn't it? I'm right there with you in terms of that Adult Swim kind of like Rick and Morty, Adventure Time, regular show vibes. Yeah. And it's because you go back to the original 2 games now, and they kind of they almost look quite Flash gamey, don't they? So I'm glad they've not just sort of like gone for the art style, but it seems like they've gone for it with the tone as well, which is good to see.
Yeah. So the art style is a huge change, and I think it's a really positive one. I think it's like a sort of more friendly, kind of more accessible presentation that they've gone for, because more people, like, I don't know, I would say that it's probably a more attractive game to more people. Nothing against those other 2 games, like obviously they looked like really good for what they were going for then, but I just think that now they've gone for this expanded world. Sorry, to answer your earlier question, you can't just walk around and explore. It's still a level by level based game, right?
Yeah.
And to go into the kind of characters that you're walking around with, skating around with, they kind of like bookend each level, I would say. So if you jump into a level and you have like a little conversation with your kind of like crew, who are kind of championing you as like the skater that's going to make it to Nirvana, right? Which is like gnarly Nirvana, I guess. Anyway, so you're on that journey, and they're kind of like your cheerleaders, I guess. And they'll just say like, "Oh wow, that was amazing." They're just kind of bigging you. They're just kind of bigging you up. I would say that
I've fallen down 5 times, but I'm glad you guys thought it was amazing. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would say that it's kind of like nice flavor. It gives more kind of like texture and life to the game and the franchise, but it's not like, I mean, the writing is fine, and it's like quite tongue-in-cheek and just like light-hearted in tone, I guess. It's not like mind-blowingly amazing, and there's not a huge amount of story to kind of delve into. I suppose that's something that you could say is maybe a negative, is that there's not kind of more depth to the characters, but again, this is a very gameplay first game, I would say.
Yeah, I was going to say, because otherwise you're in risk of like, messing up the pace that obviously the series is known for up until now. But I think you put it the right way. It's like a nice little bit of flavour. It's there. It's not too intrusive, and it's kind of just another way to lean into that quirkiness, which I think World is going for.
Yeah.
So Stephen, OlliOlli World, it's coming out on February the 8th, I believe. Coming to PS4 and PS5, or is this just a PS4 title?
It's both. I've been playing on PS5. Yeah.
Oh, okay, lovely. PS4, PS5. And I'm assuming you're going to review it, give it the full review for the channel later on down the line?
I will be, yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, I think we'll end the conversation there, but thanks for joining me today, for letting me pick your brain about OlliOlli World. Definitely one of my most anticipated games from the beginning of this year. Obviously, February is the month where it starts to get, it begins heating up proper, really, with all kinds of things coming out.
Yeah.
Well, as Stephen said, you can look forward to his full review over on the Push Square website around the time of the game's release, sometime hovering around February 8th. But Stephen, thank you very much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much. It's been really good to talk to you.
Awesome. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, be sure to give this video a like and maybe consider subscribing to the Push Square YouTube channel for everything else PlayStation related. But until then, from both me and Stephen, it's a gnarly goodbye.
Bye.